Welcome back to Mobility Insider. I'm Morten Hannesbo. Our channel remains unsponsored. All of the views and conclusions is based on me having had a 35-year career in automotive. Today we're going to talk about the Hyundai IONIQ 5. We're also going to talk about the company Hyundai. I've not been testing Hyundais for quite some time. For some reason the brand lives under my radar, contrary to the sister brand Kia, which in my opinion is more prominently positioned both in terms of design and marketing. The history goes back to 1975 when Hyundai started producing the Pony, the first mass-produced car in Korea. And Hyundai started the automotive industry, which today is very dominant in Korea. And the Hyundai Motor Group is one of the largest car companies in the world, currently number 3 after Toyota and Volkswagen. The car is built on the E-GMP platform, as it is called, from Hyundai Motor Group. That is a platform, it's very modern, it's shared among the group members, among other the EV6 and the EV9, of course also the IONIQ 6 and the Genesis GV70. It's a scalable platform that shows Hyundai Motor Group's ambition. They want to be one of the leading manufacturers in the transition to electric mobility and not just leave that initiative to the Chinese manufacturers. Since the launch in 2021 of the IONIQ 5, there have been some technical issues, among other with the 12-volt battery or the ICCU, the internal charging control unit, and that has been quite troublesome for many owners. These issues affected the early production models, and we can probably rest assured that Hyundai has now resolved these issues. And in any case, when you buy a new Hyundai, you get a 5-year manufacturer's warranty. The E-GMP platform provides ultra-fast charging up to 260 kilowatt. It also provides the opportunity to have a vehicle to load, so you can use the car to power your tools or part of your house if you need to do so. That is some of the advantages of the platform. Today we have the latest addition to the IONIQ 5 lineup. This is the IONIQ 5 inline. And there's also an IONIQ 5N, and that's very confusing. Let me explain what the difference is. The inline is the sportiest version of the standard IONIQ 5 lineup. It has 325 horsepower and all-wheel drive and a lot of sporty accents as well. The N is the full power, very sporty version, 650 horsepower, 4-wheel drive, and it is completely re-engineered by the special N division of Hyundai. The N-Line takes a lot of inspiration from the N model, with sharper styling, more firm suspension, but without making the car so uncomfortable that you cannot live with it in everyday usage. In Switzerland, the range starts at around 45,000 for the base Origo model. From there it moves through Amplia and Vertex trims before it's reaching this N-Line, which starts at 65,500. Our test car finished here in the Ecotronic Grey Matte at 1,400 Swiss francs, bringing the total to 66,900. That keeps it comfortably below the full IONIQ 5N, which lists for around 74,900, and the 325 horsepower is a more sensible choice for everyday usage. Let's talk about the consumption. We have done about 600 kilometers of driving so far with the car. Our average consumption has been 19.0 kilowatt hours, and that is with winter tires and pretty cold weather, about 10-11 degrees in October. We also did the standard test route, 57 kilometers of mixed driving, highway, country road and city driving, and that was quite a good result. Quite surprisingly, 15.4 kilowatt hours net consumption is better than I expected for the car. And what we can say about the car is that if you drive at slower speeds in town or country roads, it is very economical. If you take it to the highway and you go 120, 130, the car will increase its consumption rather swiftly. The charging is equally impressive. Hyundai promises 18 minutes of charging from 10 to 80%. We tested that to be 19 minutes and 2 seconds, so I would say that's close enough. At home, at an 11 kilowatt charger, expect about 7.5 hours to charge the car up to a 100% state of charge. It's a very large vehicle. It measures 465.5 centimeters in the length. In the width is 189 centimeters plus the mirrors. So not by any means a small car. And the wheelbase is particularly long for the size of the vehicle, exactly 300 centimeters long. And that means that parking can be a little bit tricky. The weight of the vehicle is bang on in the middle of what the segment offers, 2,265 kilos. So what that gives you is a compact car with a lot of interior space. You can easily fit in 5 passengers and luggage in the car. The IONIQ 5 strikes a good balance between sportiness and practicality. You get really comfortable seats, sport seats with Alcantara in the middle and some vegan leather on the side. The seats are heated in the front and in the rear, and in the front you also have cooled seats for that hot day. The rear seat is quite practical because you can move it back and forth on the seat bottom, and the rear seat back also can be adjusted to give you an incline that is more or less, so you can relax on a long drive. The car is really feature rich. It has a lot of practical storage options, but what I don't like is that there's a lot of hard plastic, which is not really suitable for this car, which is a fairly expensive vehicle. And the problem with that is if you have a plastic bottle in the door pocket, it will actually make quite a lot of noise, which personally I find quite annoying. So it is a trade between lots of options and equipment versus the choice of materials, and clearly Hyundai has chosen to put in options instead of expensive materials. The rear cargo space is flexible because you can move the rear seat back and forth, so you can get between 400 and 600 liters. If you fold down the rear seat, you get as much as 1,580 liters. What I think is a bit of a shame is that the cargo cover, the tonneau cover, will not stow anywhere. So if you take it out, you have to leave it at home, or it will be floating in the cargo space as a loose piece of cargo. What is nice though is that the rear doors open almost 90 degrees, so to get into the car and get out of the car is very easy. And particularly if you have a child who's sitting in a child seat, that is a big advantage. Hyundai gives you a 5-year comprehensive warranty without any kilometer limitation. That is of course very good. On the battery, the traction battery, you get an even longer warranty, 8 years, up to 160,000 kilometers. But there are a few limitations to the warranty. For instance, the 12-volt battery that has been proven to break down sometimes. Many owners had a problem with that. That only gets a 2-year warranty. And also the in-car entertainment system only gets a 3-year warranty. So there are a few buts, but overall it's a good coverage, which is above the average. On the road, the IONIQ 5 inline feels quite sporty and yet comfortable. It sits right between the N and the normal IONIQ 5 models. It runs on 20-inch wheels, and that adds to the sporty feel, but of course it also takes some of the comfort away. When you drive off, the car will automatically go back to the normal mode, which we are now driving. You can choose between the various modes. You have normal, of course, you have sport, you have a My Drive, which you can program to your liking. You have a snow mode, which gives you the optimal traction. You also have an eco mode with the least consumption possible, and then you go back to normal. Now, if you choose to drive the sport mode, which I think many will, the car will not remember that you were in the sport mode. It will automatically go back to normal, which I find a little bit annoying. So now let's put the car into sport mode. What happens then is that you have the full power available. You get a more firm steering. The pedal walk when you press the accelerator becomes a little bit shorter, and the car just feels more sorted, more sporty. That would be my preferred mode. But it actually doesn't matter which mode you're in, the steering is always quite light, a little bit too light for my liking. One thing that the car does really well is the recuperation. So you can use the cruise control, it would automatically recuperate. You can take the cruise control off, then you have 4 levels, 0, 1, 2, 3, and you also have a max mode. So if I put it into 0, as we have now, there is no recuperation. Put it into 1, you get very light recuperation, which is quite nice if you have passengers in the car, because they will feel almost no difference. If you press again, you get 2, you get heavy deceleration. 3, of course, you get even more deceleration. And finally, you have a max mode, and the max mode will let you use the one pedal mode, the I pedal as Hyundai calls it, and that will bring the car to a total stand if you take the foot off the accelerator. The car comes standard with a comprehensive package of driver assist systems. You get lane assist, you get lane change assist, you also get a good adaptive cruise control, which works really well. What the car doesn't do that well is to anticipate the changes in the speed. So if you get into a 50 zone and you're driving 80, the car will only change down to 50 after you pass the sign. So here we have a 60 sign. It will only now reduce the speed of the car, which means that you may actually be going too fast. If there was a camera just here, I would probably be going too fast and I would risk getting a big fine. But nevertheless, the car is a really good road tripper. If you want to go a long distance, 1,000 kilometers, you can actually do that with just 2 short stops of about 20 minutes and you'll get to your destination. So it's a good travel companion on long trips through Europe. The car gets a heat pump as standard, and that is of course good for the efficiency. What you also get are physical buttons for the most used functions, which I really like. Here in the center console you have the heating function, so you can turn on and off the heating or the cooling of the seats, or the steering wheel, which is heated, which is quite nice as well. What the car also does, and that's good for efficiency, is that you have a driver only mode for the heating, which is here. You press that button, it will only warm around the driver and save cost and energy for the rest of the inside of the vehicle. Finally, you get a really good heads-up display that tells you the key information. That works excellently. Rounding off the interior, you get a big screen in front of the driver going to the middle of the console. It is responsive, it's really easy to read it, and you also get a nice Bose sound system. It is a nice car to drive, you feel well, you have a good overview, and you get all the information necessary. So like with many other modern cars, the IONIQ 5 also gives you a lot of sounds, depends on what the car thinks is going to happen. You also have an active sound which is linked to the motors and the change of speed, which I've switched on. I don't really like it, but you know, it may be something that you prefer, and then you can of course do that in 3 different settings. So you have active sound design, largest change, so the more loud, moderate, smallest, and then off, which I prefer. In terms of the speed, one of the things that is quite annoying in many cars, now it's completely off. Normally you have speed assist where the car will change the setting to whatever it thinks the speed limit is, and you have the warning sound that gives you a beep every time the speed limit changes. I tend to turn it off because sometimes the car cannot read the speed limit, so you think it's 30 or the car thinks it's 30, and in fact you can go 50 or 80, and that's quite annoying. I tend to just take it off. That brings me to the conclusion on the test of the IONIQ 5 inline. I think this is just right for most people. It is more engaging than the base series of the IONIQ 5, and it is less in your face than the full power IONIQ 5N. When the IONIQ 5 came out in 2021, it really set a new benchmark in the SUV segment. It had a distinct design, and it offered a really comprehensive package, both in terms of space and in terms of technology. But for 2026, there is much more competition around. You have the Kia EV6 that's just been refreshed, also the new Tesla Model Y, the BMW iX3, just to mention some. And of course, you also have the MEB platform vehicles, the Volkswagen ID.4, the Audi Q4 e-tron, and the Skoda Enyaq. But the IONIQ 5 is still one of the best ones around. But there are a couple of drawbacks. First of all, you have a boxy shape that gives you space, but at the same time, the fuel efficiency will always suffer as a result of that. The coefficient of drag is 0.31, and that is quite high. And that means that the consumption will be fairly high as well. In our test of more than 600 kilometers, we had an average consumption of 18.8 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That is a good result, but it is not excellent. Other drawbacks are that you have a high turning radius, about 12 meters in total, and that's because of the long wheelbase and the drive configuration. Second thing is the price is fairly high. It's about 10,000 more than a comparable Tesla Model Y dual motor. And finally, I did not really find that the menu system in the in-car entertainment is that easy to maneuver around. And I think if you're going to buy one of these cars, you will want to ask the dealer to explain this to you several times before you get it. And finally, and I know this is a small detail, but the key fob, I really don't like the way this has been designed. I know this is supposed to be the Hyundai logo, and the shape is, yeah, I don't know, it's just cheap. It doesn't fit an expensive car like the IONIQ 5 N-Line, and it's not quite easy to use it either. On the positive side, the IONIQ 5 looks great, and it drives really comfortably, and it packs in nearly every feature you would want, all while keeping the calm high-tech feel that makes it a standout electric vehicle. It's fast when you want it, and it's always quiet. It blends design, comfort, and just the right dose of performance. The IONIQ 5 is still special in a good way, and it has a lot of presence, combined with lots of high-tech and a comprehensive warranty. I've decided to give the IONIQ 5 N-Line 3.5 out of a possible 4 stars. This is an excellent car. It will not excite you in terms of driving dynamics, but it will delight you in everyday usage. Thank you for watching Mobility Insider. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.